Okay, so this is virtual reality and augmented reality. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to talk mostly about VR, not so much about AR. Just so if you're really into AR, maybe you can ask some questions at the end. But most of these guys do VR. Obviously, this whole thing about virtual reality and also AR has been getting a lot of, let's say, talk time, shelf space. There's been a lot of talk about it. I mean, if you look at what Facebook is doing with Oculus Rift, you know, there's, I mean, Samsung. How many people, just to start, how many of you have actually used some kind of virtual reality? Now, we're going to start at the low end. How many have used Google Cardboard? Hands up. Google Cardboard, okay, few people. How many of you use, say, Samsung, the Netgear type thing? Hands up. Okay, good. How about more of one of these tested ones, like an Oculus Rift? You may have done it at a show or in a lab. Oh, look, there's a lot of Oculus Rift. Okay, great. Okay, anybody done Oculus Rift Touch? Do you know what I'm talking about with that? It's the toy box demo. I've done that. That was cool. Can I just say that is freaking cool? They give you hand controllers, you can pick up stuff. It's cool. Anyway, if you get a chance, do that. So that kind of gives you an idea, guys, of where the audience is, yeah, in terms of what they're doing. We're going to, there's been a lot of talk about VR. We're going to start with Sönke doing some kind of a demo. Do you want to do it right now?
Yes, it's not personally me who's doing it. It's will be Philip.
Oh, somebody else is doing it. Okay.
Yes, he will show it. It's a documentary we shot at the FMX in Stuttgart at the beginning of this year. It's about creating. We created with compositing a new space, a new room. And
before you go on, just hold on 1 second. So Sönke, just because I didn't actually introduce you. So Sönke is Sönke Kirchhof, sorry. Right. And you are the CEO of reallifefilm, yes? Okay, which is in Berlin. You do lots of different things. You actually have equipment, you do productions, you do a whole variety of things. Let me just do the rest of the people while we're sitting here. Henry's next to him, Henry. Henry Stuart is the CEO and co-founder of Visualise. That's a London-based company. We'll hear more from him in a moment. Thomas Wallner is next to him. He is CEO of Deep Inc. As he said to me, Deep, he didn't want to call it shallow. No, kidding. It's an acronym. So he's from Toronto, Canada, so we'll hear more about what he's up to later. And then right next to me is Gombos. He is the visual effects supervisor and creative director, production studio manager for something in LA called 8i, which is a company that started in New Zealand and is now doing other things as well. So that's our group. Sorry, I didn't mean to get ahead of myself. Sönke, go back.
Right,
talk about your...
We created the brand in VR, so with this brand we shot a documentary at FMX in Stuttgart in collaboration with FMX. It's a lot of people well known in the industry, virtual reality industry, talking about the future of VR. That's the title of the documentary. And the one thing we did is creating a new room and compositing. And the other thing is using the mechanics that can be used in virtual reality. If you have a lot of people sitting in 360 degrees around you, talking to you, you have to focus one person, and then you're specifically listening to this person. And if you're looking somewhere else, the binaural audio will keep in the space where the person is sitting. And if you're looking long enough to another person, you will start immediately to listen to that person. So you can interact, soft interact, and decide whom you want to listen, and look around in the room and stay with the feeling where he's sitting. Okay. So actually, how it works.
So what are we looking at
and
here?
Welcome to Philip on stage.
I see. Right.
Seems sound is not delivered right now.
Okay, so you're putting it into this device.
You can't get out of in a room you're stuck in, and a bullet that might actually kill you. You realize that the dream was about creating reality, about having a computer synthesize a real world.
Mm-hmm. Well, my name is Mona Hamdi, and I am the co-founder and managing director of a large-scale pilot project that aims to eliminate poverty and preserve culture in a remote, impoverished area of Saudi Arabia.
I've been asked to talk about virtual reality. It's a tricky question.
Oh, there it stops. I know it's a Wi-Fi, perhaps. Anyway,
think of reading a book as virtual reality.
On its own,
to another
VR, so
entirely.
This will be more comfortable, but perhaps the mechanics are clear that you can look around and listen to whom you want.
Amazing. Okay. So let's just ask a first question of everybody, and we'll start with, I can't remember, we're going to start with you. I think we're going to start with Reiner. Yes? I can't remember now. So Reiner, why don't we start with you? Why is virtual reality so hot now? Why do you think that we're hearing so much about it? Is it just because we're able to do it, or is it because we need it to make for new storytelling, or?
Well, it's a super interesting new technology, and I mean, a lot of people feel now that it will become a real thing now. There's been a lot of investment in this market that doesn't quite exist yet. A lot of companies have been founded, and it's a very exciting field. I'm interested in it because of the world creation aspect of it. I see a lot of potential for experiences that weren't possible before.
It's actually like what Nigel was talking about, creating whole worlds that didn't exist. Yeah, but you're talking even more far out type things, like, I don't know, aliens, monsters, what?
Yeah, I mean, at AI we specialize in recreating reality or capturing reality and playing it back. But then, of course, you could use elements of reality and create fictional worlds from that.
Ah, cool. All right. What do you think? Why do you think VR has become such a hot thing, and how much of it is hype?
Well, I think right now we're in the top of a hype curve, for sure. But I think the reason VR is so hot is because of people's experience with it. And what they immediately sense is that they're interacting with a medium that actually negates the distance between yourself and the medium that you're experiencing. And that has actually never happened before. So that, the observer and the observed become one, and no other medium can do that. And that is very seductive.
And when you say we're at the top of the hype curve, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's hard to say. I don't know.
I mean, Reiner says
it's a bad thing in the sense that people are throwing money at certain people. Not me. No.
Not you, Tim.
But no, really, I think there are overblown expectations and a lot of money perhaps being thrown in the wrong place. Occasionally.
Interesting. Okay. What's your view?
I think it's been a convergence of technology driven by mobile phones, which allows the processors to be fast enough, the screens to be high enough resolution, and for it all to be cheap enough, so that when you put this headset on, it's actually comfortable. It doesn't make you feel ill. Because this stuff was kicking around in the 80s and 90s, but it just wasn't feasible as a product, and it is now. And then why it's going to be so hot, I'd say, it's because it's got the ability to emotionally connect with people in a way like no other media really has. I mean, I think PlayStation VR did a demo recently where you had a girl sitting next to you, and you're giving her a lesson in this summer house, and she leans a bit too close, and she's speaking to you in a soft voice, and everyone actually gets quite embarrassed, and they get kind of red-faced, and they kind of feel a bit uncomfortable.
Because she's too close.
Yeah, she's too close, and you've got this kind of emotional connection, and people are kind of blushing. And that's quite a powerful thing for any medium to be able to deliver.
Definitely. That's very cool, actually. Sönke, why do you think it's so hot right now? I mean, it's good for you because you're renting equipment, but I mean...
Yeah. No, it's even better because I like to make films and storytelling, and I think storytelling, as more immersive it is, as more it attracts the audience, and virtual reality is, if properly done, a good tool to immerse the audience. Yeah.
Henry, let's go to your reel. Talk to us a little bit about what you do, because really your company does a lot of work with brands, you work with events, you're not sort of classic, what I would say, film and TV type virtual reality user. So talk to us a little bit about why it's happening there. Is that just where the money is?
Yeah, I mean, we work primarily with brands and big events. We do a lot of music events, capturing kind of gigs and doing live streaming in VR. But yeah, I think it's partly because that's where a lot of money is, and brands have been one of the first people to climb onto VR and see it as a great opportunity, not just for PR, which it is, but that will fade off. But it's also a great way to connect in a way which has given you a truly captive audience. You know, you're really immersed in the brand. I mean, there literally is no escape, which can also kind of work badly for them if it's bad content as well.
Yeah, I felt that when I was in the when I did the Oculus Touch. When they took the thing off me, the guy said, "Welcome back." I had been completely in that other place. So you're right; it's an engagement thing. Do you want to show your reel now? Would that be a good moment to show this? Can we show the Visualise? Yeah, Visualise reel, please. mean, you can really see how some of those experiences, like driving a car, being on the top of the shard, I mean, obviously the VR just makes it completely different.
Yeah, that's right. It gives you an ability to transport people. And with VR, there's this expression that everyone's aiming for. There's this thing that everyone's aiming for if you make good VR, which is called presence. Because the idea is if you make it comfortable enough and engaging enough, then people can actually really lose themselves in the content, and kind of forget where they are for a bit. And that's the aim for all of us as producers.
When you talked to me earlier about, you said, what do you gain and lose in VR? Talk a little bit about that, because you talked about pace and immersion. So just riff a little bit about that, because I think that's interesting.
Well, yeah,
because you do lose something when you go into a virtual reality.
There's just a huge amount of kind of barriers that come up, and there's a huge amount of issues that you have to get over, which nobody could have foreseen with VR. I mean, a lot of the kind of techniques that you'd use in traditional filmmaking don't work so well. I mean, like, I think one of the ones we mentioned earlier was, frequent cutting. People find it quite disorientating, because if you're in an environment, you're kind of dumped in a picture, and then you need to take your time to kind of look around you and find where you are, or else, you're in the next scene before you've even seen what you're meant to, which even spins off another point, which is where should you be looking? And this has been one of the first things that everyone said about VR, is how are you going to tell a story if you don't know where the viewer's looking?
Where to look, right.
Which is where Thomas has actually come up with quite an amazing solution.
Yeah, which is probably a good segue. So Thomas,
Actually,
you have a demo,
I wouldn't
right?
mind adding to that
go ahead.
What Henry was saying, is that I think we have to be conscious of the fact that the modalities of viewing in traditional film and VR are completely different. They're different in the sense that VR really replaces your reality with another reality. But when we're actually watching a film, we're watching something that is created in a codified language that creates a metaphor of reality that condenses space and condenses time in order to tell a story. And it does it very, very efficiently. And all previous media does that very, very well, whether it be novels or the human language. When I speak to you right now, I'm using code, basically. That your brain then puts together into a reality. And VR is completely different, meaning that you lose a lot of things, like the ability to condense time and space and create meaning through juxtaposition, which is really at the heart of film. So you give up a lot, actually. And I know, because I'm a filmmaker of 20 years, and then now working in VR that offers that immersion, which is so enticing. It's also an incredible challenge to be actually able to tell a story, because everything operates completely differently.
I know when I did the Oculus again, and they did, I think it was Henry the Hedgehog, and you were in Henry the Hedgehog's house, and you sat down, you had the stuff on, and they sat me on a little rug so I wouldn't fall down. I think that was the idea. And you can look around, of course, you can see all around Henry's house. Henry's over here, by the way, the hedgehog. And you're looking over here, and suddenly I'm looking over there, and Henry did something, but I'd missed it. Because he was back over there, and I thought, well, how do you tell a drama? I mean, it's ridiculous. So that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think we don't have answers for that yet, and that's exactly the same thing that makes it so exciting.
Yeah, we're all newbies in VR.
They were all newbies in VR. That's the quote, by the way, AC. We're all newbies in VR. You have some kind of a demo you're going to show us?
Yeah,
Talk us through that.
Let's see if it works. Does it work? Do we
this
see
is the
something
one off the phone. Can you get
on the
that
screen?
to work?
Yes,
Reconnect
I
it.
can. Well,
unplug it, replug it.
There we go. Well, I can. Why don't we keep talking, and
Okay.
then I'll
Right.
keep plugging.
Now, you guys weren't praying hard enough to the technology gods. That's the problem. Okay.
It's amazing if you had seen it.
Okay, so you're going to keep working on that, right?
Actually, yes, somebody
Okay.
will.
He's going to keep working on that.
Delegating.
Right. So can we, now I'm asking, can we go to Reiner's demo, or is that the same kind of technology? We should just keep talking.
No, it's
we don't do any
independent.
demos. Let's keep talking for a
There's something
bit.
to add to that about kind of where you position things for a story.
Yep.
There's been some research that shows, and also if you just watch people with a headset on, you put a headset on someone, and then they'll start looking around everywhere. They'll
that's
just
what I
look
was
all
doing.
around them. That takes a little bit of time, but then after that, once they're settled into an experience, very rarely do people really want to crane their necks much further
Do
than
they
that.
really?
So
Okay.
really, like you have like about that much area where we just try and focus the main parts of the narrative like that, and that's the easiest way to concentrate someone. But also, I mean, it's vital to have the rest of that picture in there because it sets the scene and it makes you feel like you are in a different place. If you cut that away, it wouldn't feel nearly as immersive.
Right. You just tell me when you're ready, okay? So,
I'm not ready.
okay, Reiner, let's talk a little bit about the technical side of all this. Sort of good VR
Like in
versus
2 minutes.
bad VR. Well, as long as it takes to get this damn demo running, basically, yeah. I'm kidding, go ahead, sorry. Talk about
Good
the,
VR versus bad VR.
yeah, what's the technical side, of all this? I mean, where are we now in the sort of the curve of things? You've been working in this area for a while.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. I've seen some good VR. I mean, there's certainly potential to do good VR. Personally, I feel that having 6 degrees of freedom is much more attractive, which allows basically the viewer to move around in something, which is certainly more challenging, and maybe not the best thing to, for example, have like a documentary style experience. I mean, you certainly wouldn't be able right now to bring that kind of camera setup with you. Still, I think I like full immersion. I like that part of it. I like that in good VR you get a sense of scale. And
So talk about a specific example, like you worked, I know it's a number of years ago now, but it's the one I know about, so Game of Thrones, you worked on that. So obviously there was a lot of VR on that, right? Because you had to create things. You had to create walls of ice and I don't know what else.
there are a lot of visual effects in Game of
Visual
Thrones,
effects,
yeah.
so was any of that relevant or not really? That's not quite VR, that's more just visual
No,
effects.
yeah.
That's really one step
I
back.
mean,
Okay.
similar
Get the-
techniques are being used, like 360 backgrounds, like the panels that we did, for example, yeah.
And
I had a lot
they
of fun
did
with
do
that.
I think FrameStore did a VR experience from
Yes,
Game of Thrones, didn't they?
FrameStore is
Did they?
specializing
Oh.
on that now, yeah.
So you could go up the north wall.
Yes,
You can climb the wall yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
No
mean,
thanks.
Shot at,
certainly-
I think, as well.
I mean, some things are happening. I think maybe it's a bit too early, but overall, I think visual effects is moving towards real-time visual effects eventually. Maybe it's going to take a few more years. And yes, costs will go down even more.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, for like real-time rendering, I know that there's a lot happening in that field. Like a lot of visual effects companies are considering doing VR productions, and some of them are very compelling. And it feels like the one thing that has been missing for compelling VR experiences has been that we were not really able to capture humans very well. So often in even the very successful VR experiences, they were like projections on flat cards. And then when you move sideways, then they move with you and they slide over the ground. It's like in whoever played Doom, I don't know.
Yeah.
Corpses used to like
Move.
turn with you, and that's not what they do. And so basically, what we're working on is a technology that allows you to move around and see things from different angles, and that's a big deal actually. So
How far away are you from that, do you think?
we are doing it.
You're doing it
It's
now?
happening now.
And who's paying for it now? I mean, is it going to end up in a commercial or a brand experience or a theme
Venture
park? Venture
capitalists. paying for it.
capitalists, right? That's why he lives in LA, by the way.
It's excellent, yeah. So
Closer to the money. Yeah.
it's I mean, a lot of visual effects people are actually quite happy working for venture capitalists rather than film and movie productions and broadcast productions, because the deadlines are not as bad. We don't really have deadlines, which is interesting.
In
Yeah,
venture
so
capital.
We just
No, but you
I
do
go
have
to work
high
and I think, what am I
ROIs.
doing today? I feel about doing this. You don't do that when you work on a movie. Yeah.
All right. So what else, I mean, what other about technology that we could talk about here? Is there anything that's happening that's good, bad, and different that's pushing it to the next level?
There's
Sönke?
Sorry, go on.
Anyway, yeah, I just would mention sound. The sound guys will highly appreciate virtual reality because they are getting more interesting, talking about spatial sound and binaural sound, because as we already talked about, how to direct the view of the audience and not to look there, and over there is all the things happening. You can direct it by binaural sound, that everybody has a feeling where is something happening and then directly looks at this direction.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, binaural sounds incredible, absolutely. But also there's the future of light field cameras. So at the moment, there's quite a few ways of capturing 360 video. And still quite often the best ways are using really kind of what most people in this room would consider really kind of poor quality cameras or kind of consumer level cameras. So the GoPros are still relevant on a lot of shoots for VR, literally just tiny balls of GoPros. And then there's, we're starting to use camera systems which involve bigger cameras, I mean, up to the size of Reds, but it actually means it's very hard to capture really good quality VR for all kinds of other reasons. So there's this constant debate going on around what the best way is to kind of capture VR footage. And ultimately, we're all leading towards this technology called light field, which is where rather than just using traditional cameras in arrays like we're doing at the moment, you'll have this kind of giant ball which can capture everything that's going on from a certain amount of area, which means that rather than just looking around like that with your head, you can move your whole body around it, a certain amount. And like in that film you saw from Oculus, which was completely computer generated, you can actually move yourself around a scene which is filmed from a camera rather than made from scratch.
There's the company that Sky has invested in the UK called Jaunt. Is that the kind of camera that they're creating, these kind of ball type, where it shoots everything at the same time, or is that still an array
It's
type?
actually different. I mean, I think, that...
Oh, tell us your true opinion.
Yeah. It's, it's very interesting technology, but, I mean, the Jaunt system, you have to do everything through that system. So from our point of view as a production house, we'd rather use systems which allow us to see the content in all kinds of places on different platforms. But what's really interesting to us, though, is the jump camera, Google's jump camera, which is a 16-camera array of GoPros.
That one.
Yeah,
Is it that one? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that's incredible because traditionally you shoot 3D with just two cameras, kind of eye width apart or further apart for things further away. But with this camera, it uses all of those cameras that are facing any one thing and just works out the best views to give you for whatever eye. And it looks really good, apart from that huge hole in the top of the camera and in the bottom, which you have to fill in post. But that's a massive step forward for us, and it's going to be a great way for a lot of people to be able to produce VR quite easily too.
Right. So this is obviously your picture.
Yeah, it seems to work. So
yeah, so
okay.
I'll let you take it away.
So I think we should just remember the dead for a second. So without saying too much, they used equipment that looks remarkably similar 115 years ago. And as the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. What you see here is actually a 360-degree drone camera that was flown over Paris in 1900 on a balloon.
Wow.
Which then led to an augmented reality experience where a giant screen was erected and these projectors below projected that film, which was synchronized and made people feel that they were actually flying around in the balloon in 1900.
Wow.
I found that quite amazing. And so I was inspired by this.
Does that film still exist?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I looked for it, but it doesn't
Wow.
exist. So I thought, why not 115 years later do the same thing? And what I'm going to show you looks quite shitty because it's a work in progress. So it'll look really beautiful, like Henry's beautiful 360s, but you shoot with a flat gamma ray and it's pre-stitched. And so basically, I called the Canadian and French Space Agency and told them whether I could hitch a ride into the stratosphere, and they said yes. So I'll just give you a little glimpse of that.
So you're up in the stratosphere in this?
I wasn't, otherwise I'd be dead.
Right, okay, sorry, the camera was.
Yeah. So,
Oh, I see.
if you can see, there's a balloon there. And that's a platform where Jürgen Gertz of Freedom 360 and I mounted 19 cameras onto this thing, which now is lifting off. And it'll look really nice in the end when we're done. It's just AC put me on the spot to show it today. Can we turn it up a bit? It's the music of the dead. It's Felix Mendelssohn.
This is like a really big drone.
It's a very big drone. The balloon expands to 800,000 cubic meters.
Oh my God.
Has a circumference of 300 meters and can carry 3 tons, 42 kilometers into near space. So that's what we did. I'll just forward it a bit. So we go up. No, there we go. No, that's where we're falling again. So this was at around 38 kilometers, and it actually ended, I think it's the highest spherical shot of the Earth right
So
now.
it's above where the guy jumped out of the Red Bull
Yeah,
thing,
yeah, I
right?
actually saw him fall by. Just at one point. It's like, no, I didn't because we were higher.
You were higher.
So that's it. Yeah, and then coming down. Yeah. Anyway, it's all very lovely. There you go.
So what you're going to do with that is make that all pretty and...
Yeah, it's a 10-minute film for Arte. This app actually launches tomorrow or the day after. It's a VR platform that we're building for broadcasters so they can actually distribute VR content to audiences around the world on
That's
multiple
cool.
devices.
So, sorry, to what?
To multiple devices.
To multiple
I
devices.
add that to every sentence now.
Yeah, right, you have to say that. On any device,
Call
anywhere
me
you are.
on
Good.
multiple devices.
Multiple devices, okay. Now, do we have his video on your phone as well? Or what's happened to
Oh, sorry.
your
No, that's
video?
on another computer.
That's on
back
another
there.
computer. Do you have
It's on multiple
Reiner's-
devices.
Did you? I love this session. I'm having a great time. Did you ever get that thing off the stick or not? Okay. Let's play that if we can. Do you need to say anything to set this up?
No. It might be really bad.
Might be really bad. Okay, well, there's a setup.
Might be low resolution and really short. I haven't watched it yet. They've just put that.
You have to keep inventing and you have to keep showing people why you're here. It's about who's going to rock the spot tonight.
As the internet transitions to 3D, 8i brings you the best way to create and experience content in this new digital reality. 8i transforms regular video of real people into truly immersive 3D experiences for virtual reality, augmented reality, and the web. For the first time, you can move around them and experience a real emotional connection. Wow. We're on a mission to enable everyone to connect with each other in the closest way to real life,
Just wanted a video for you to see when you're grown and you have your own family.
where you're not just watching someone, you're with them.
I have like goosebumps.
When you're looking at something created in 8i, it's that eye contact that you make with an individual. You're able to see the facial expressions.
There's an authenticity to it.
And they're going to become part of us that we leave behind.
You can literally be anywhere. It's no longer restricted space. It's effectively infinite space.
I mean, that's cool.
All
So
right. Wasn't too bad.
that wasn't too bad, I think, yeah. I mean, for a tech conference, we're doing okay, yeah? Okay.
So that was our CEO talking about how good our technology is.
Right. So how does this change storytelling for you, this ability?
Yeah, I think it will allow people to really have people be inside these experiences, like a story can unfold around you, and the stories will probably be told differently, probably more like we told stories before there was film, there was two-dimensional imagery. It's a bit like theater maybe, where you have like a really large stage, where you have the ability to teleport and play with scale. You could be very small, very large, and there'll be new tools available, but of course there'll be some new restrictions. It's also for others to try that out. I think it has large values also outside of storytelling.
When you look at well, let me ask you as well, in terms of changing how we're telling stories, I mean, do you see that as the end goal of all this, that's going to be something more immersive? I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about when I was doing the Oculus Rift is I was thinking, why was Facebook so interested in this? And Facebook's all about community, right?
They're all about money.
They're all about money. That's true. But the idea is that they want, obviously, I assume, want to leverage this ability in their community, their Facebook community, so people can actually interact in a different way. So do you think we're moving to a different level of interaction with so-called audiences where we...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think we are. I mean, because we can create realities for them. I think something that I've had to think about a lot was, why do we do these things? Why do we, like in a general sense, stepping back and saying, why do we create these kind of experiences? Right now we're creating them because they're technologically possible, but I think they'll only survive if they engender a sense of meaning for the audience who uses it. Because ultimately, honestly, you don't need VR to move people. You can, I don't know, do a shadow puppet play on the wall, and if you have a good storyteller, you'll move people to tears. So I think it just has to be authentic in the end. And I think, for instance, that technology is very interesting in the sense that ultimate photogrammetry is just another way of photographing reality in a way. But one of the things that we should think about, and I learned a really interesting lesson watching I don't know how many people know Noni de la Peña, and she did a piece on domestic violence where she took a 911 tape of ultimately something that turned into a murder in the end, and you heard the audio tape, but the visuals were CGI, and they were not good CGI. And it's not a criticism of Nani de la Peña. I just want to make a point. They were sort of, I would even call them stick figures almost, like compared to what you're doing, they were not realistic. But because the audio was authentic, it lent an aura of the real to these figures, and it was absolutely chilling. So I think that at the end, we want something real that touches us, even if it's just a component of it. And I know that CEO of HTC Vive made big waves recently by saying, oh, 360 video, it's not even VR. He's technically right about that. And it's a shitty experience. And I sort of wrote back around that saying, well, you know, in 100 years from now, when we go back to the archive, will people want to see your pyrotechnics that actually don't run on any platform anymore? Or a shitty 360 video that actually captured a moment that you could inhabit 100 years ago, even if it didn't look very good, but it has the aura of the real. I know what people will be looking at 100 years from now. So, you know.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Now, Sönke, I think you had a clip as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Do you guys have Sönke's clip as well?
It should work. It's optimized for the Samsung Gear, but it will work on here as well.
If we could play that, do you want to talk into it or just play it?
No, we can play it.
Just play it, and then
say
you can
something
talk afterwards.
as well. Yeah. Sometimes that's a problem with 360-degree video, that the team is always somewhere in the video if they don't hide properly.
Yeah, you can't get out of the way of the camera because it's everywhere.
That's it,
So is there anything specifically you want to say about that, or?
Oh, it's just a mixture of projects that we worked on. As I said, InVR.space is a brand we just created a couple of months ago, so it's not all stuff that I personally produced with reallifefilm International, but content that we as team are involved in. So it shows kind of the bandwidth that of projects we worked on. So perhaps that's it.
Cool, it's very cool. Why don't we open it up to you guys? Do you have any questions for our VR panel? Oh, well, good, great. So we have one here, and then we have this man here. So, yeah.
Hi, I think it's just a question for all of you four. And to take it to the next level, how far are we away from live VR?
Not far.
Live?
Live.
We can do that already.
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah, we did it on Tuesday, actually.
So the answer is Tuesday, last Tuesday.
I think there are different opinions about this. There's like, there's a bit of a different opinion, even what a light field is really. We had a bit of a discussion earlier.
Oh, sorry, did you say live or light field?
Live, L-I-V-E.
Oh, yeah.
That's live, okay.
Yeah,
that's something
exactly. Yeah, that's what
I
we did,
understood light field.
Okay, so all right, so let's talk about both. So live,
Yeah.
L-I-V-E. Can you talk
with,
about that?
With live, yeah. So there's a number of different ways of doing it, and the way we did it was just to use one of our 360 camera rigs.
Yeah.
All the content coming straight off it. So you've got 6 cameras in a ball. They all go down into a computer, which stitches all that content together into one video, and that's sent up to servers with synchronized sound. And then we did it with schools around the UK on something called Digital Day, and school children could put Google Cardboard headsets on, and then they could look around at this talk being done by one of the guys who does TED Talks, Rory Sullivan.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the best way to do it. NBA at the moment are doing it using 2 cameras rather than 6.
This is the basketball people.
Yeah, exactly, for basketball. So they're doing 2 cameras, each one's 180 degrees. So they're not showing the whole 360, they're just showing 2 cameras, one for each eye, looking at the court. And that gives you really nice stereo, and you don't have to stream all this stuff of the crowd behind that no one even wants to look at.
Right.
So there's a number of different ways of doing it.
And what's the latency rate? In other words, how fast does it actually go from being shot to being viewable?
It's about 5 to 10 seconds.
That's it? Wow.
But the problem is, like, one of the big things in VR, it all comes back to this idea of presence, which you don't get presence in content unless you're really comfortable. And the problem with live streaming at the moment is there isn't really the bandwidth in most internets. So we have to, when we stream it, it can go out in beautiful high resolution, but people are streaming it on 3G on your mobile phone, and this content's wrapping all the way around you. So it's a really low resolution, and it's really low frame rate, so it's not nearly as good as the stuff that you can look at on headsets when it's offline.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about live, L-I-V-E? No? Okay, now you want to talk about light
field.
Light field. So what about light field? That was what we were talking about before, right? So that's there's a dispute about light field. You said
about light field, yes. How far we are with that, but ultimately it's similar because he was just talking about the bandwidth problem, and you have that even more with light fields and with VR maybe in general because you're recording multiple video streams.
Yep.
And to enable light field capture and playback, you're dealing with even larger amounts of data. And that's something where some companies are working on. 8i is one of these companies, and there are different ways of doing it. Like basically, the goal is to shoot with as few cameras as possible, and then still being able to recreate the full volumetric representation of reality from that information. And the challenge is just to use as few as possible. We're using 40 for a full hologram in a way.
40.
40, wow. Yeah, which is slightly less, or quite a bit less than Microsoft is using. Microsoft is using, apparently, from what I've heard, about 100. They're doing some similar technology. Also, Otoy is researching in that field. So light field are maybe a bit further away. Everyone pretty much, I think, agrees that light fields will allow us to really have the best VR experience in the future. Technology is not quite there. I think Lightroad just announced something, a camera that would enable you to capture a light field. That would be great to have if that exists, if they actually...
Yeah, the problem is it costs $500,000.
Yeah.
And it has to have a server underneath it, so you couldn't very easily attach it to... cameraman. Or,
they sell it with a server, but even that is...
Here, have a camera, and here's your server. Yeah, okay.
I'm actually surprised it's here already in some kind of form.
Well,
I mean, light field
the video's here, isn't it?
The video,
I guess so.
Hyping it up.
Well, it was invented in around 1920, actually. The light field camera was invented theoretically by a physicist who could not implement it in his lifetime because the technology didn't exist. But it essentially captures depth and light information. That's a very simple way of saying it at the same time, and that is exciting.
Another question from, there was a man here. There's this fellow here. And then is there another one we can get ready? We only have one mic, I think, but let's go to him. There.
Yeah, hello. I think this is also a question for all of you. I'm an author and a journalist, so I'm picking up from the journalist point of view. What can we do with VR video in this direction and storytelling in this direction? I think there are many possibilities, and there are some borders we can't cross. First question is when I would really like to dig in and buy myself a rig with VR technology or with GoPro cameras or whatever is coming up now. What is your experience? Like these GoPro rigs, or there are coming things up like the Sphericam, or I think Nokia has also some things hands-on. I don't have any experience with this. Parallel to this, they promise with these all-in-one gadgets that they have also a software included that makes the stitching automatically and stuff. Have you any advice that you could say this is a good technology that you would go for, that the stitching is working fine and you have a good result at the end?
And the goal of what you're going to do with this is what? Are you trying to produce something professionally, or what are you going to use it for?
In fact, there are many things I can think about to use it for. For my proposed, what for journalistical things, so that you go maybe somewhere, I don't know, maybe to some area where is something happening, and you can really show people 360 degrees, so that you can't say you are lying, journalist. Look, I can just look around. I don't lie. It's everything there.
Exactly.
Well, you can lie in 360 degrees.
Sure.
No problem.
Don't spoil it, please.
It just makes the lie a little more immersive and bigger.
Makes it a bigger lie.
But to answer your question from a very practical point of view, so you could get a GoPro rig together in a week if you wanted to, by, let's say, getting a rig from Freedom 360 and the GoPro cameras. It'll cost you, like $4,500 or Canadian. It's very low right now, Canadian dollar. So it's imminently affordable. And then I think there's just a very steep learning curve to it. There's stitching software that kind of works, but to stitch properly is more an art than a science. So if you want to, let's say, do it at the level of the kind of footage that you saw Henry showing, that's going to take you a while to learn how to do it properly. But we all had to learn that. And I think what's nice about that is that the means of production, and that's why I really do think that on a certain realm, perfection is not important right now. We don't have to wait for the light field camera or the stereoscopic 360 camera in order, let's say, for you to experiment as a journalist on how to tell a story. You just do it.
For example, like the Sphericam, you heard of this coming up thing? I don't know if you maybe had your hands on already.
No.
Because what I've seen in the internet and what they have on footage on YouTube looks quite nice for just one camera.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't really matter. Just get one and get going.
Yeah, I think Sphericam would work there, or the Reoc Theta is quite good if you want a first one. They've got an S version out now with no stitching at all needed, as with the Sphericam, I think. So either of those two are just really easy to use. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to learn doing stitching if you use the GoPro rigs. And also, there's threats for an official GoPro rig to come out and the Google Jump system to come out. So I'd almost wait on that investment and get something simpler to experiment, not worrying about the stitching side, just worry about the storytelling side with one of the simpler rigs, and then wait and see what comes out.
Yeah, because the storytelling part is a lot harder than the technical part. Really?
That would be my second short question about the storytelling part, because I see many things for short stories, for music videos. There are right now a new Muse video, Revolt, which is shot in 360, which is really nice done. But when it comes to really like longer things, like a movie, I think there are really borders you can't cross, because I think it's called the couch effect. When you're sitting on the couch and you don't want to move all the time to see everything, because you just want to relax and enjoy the show.
Yeah, but you can. I think that's a misconception. I mean, just because, for instance, I've been looking at you now for 45 minutes, and I haven't been... I have... No, not you particularly. Although, no. But I have not been compelled to look behind me at all. So I think it's partly the lack of control in 360 players, because I think what's very nice is that we basically have a borderless image that makes us feel like we're there. So, and if the things that are interesting are in front of us, and they're interesting enough to hold our attention, you don't need to constantly move around. It's just that feeling of presence, of being there.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Just because you can look behind you doesn't mean you need to in VR.
Yes.
And it can just be used at certain points of stories. You know, if you're doing a VR horror film or something like that, then nearly all the action's in front of you until something starts creeping up behind you. And that's when you leap off your sofa.
That's when you turn around. I think that's a really good place to stop, actually.
Can I just say one more thing?
You
Sorry.
say one more thing,
One more
okay.
thing. What I'm trying to say is the means of production are really, really in your hand. You can go out and do this tomorrow, which leads me to another point. I don't see a lot of women working in VR. Nani de la Peña is one of those, but you have a lot of panels where it's just a bunch of guys sitting around. And honestly, it's not that difficult.
Oh, Thomas!
No.
Okay, now all the women have to attack him at the
No, that's
coffee
not
hour.
what I meant.
Oh, what did you mean?
No, I meant that for everybody. It's because they're sort of we're the so-called experts in VR.
Okay.
But it's just the beginning of the beginning, and the learning curve is there, but it's not that difficult that anyone
Right.
can't just get into it now.
Okay, I
so-
think you're digging yourself deeper. That's all right. Okay, I'm going to close this session now.
I'm
You can talk to
jet-lagged.
them
Give me a
during the
break.
coffee break. Could you please join me in thanking Reiner, Thomas, Henry, and Sönke?